I want to stay on the point of us not having given enough focus to this aspect of indigenous weaponry, because that's something that's actually been a recurring topic on the previous two seasons as well. When I discussed this with the respective guests, that and also the fact that perhaps like it was with the Indian Air Force and Tejas, the Indian Army has a fair share of blame to accept when it comes to not being able to support the development of India's own rifles. So I wanted thoughts on that, and also on the part about not having enough focus. Do you think this is a case of what you spoke about when we discussed the AMCA project? That this project should not be seen as a DRDO project. It should not be seen as an ADA project. It should be seen as a national security project for which everyone needs to come together. Do you think that's where we failed when it comes to the rifle? Because like you said at the beginning, you have 2 million odd people who need that ASAP. Regardless, you have your military and then you have paramilitary, armed police, etc. And forget the armed police. Even your local police will have units that will need. They'll have the QRT teams because of the day and age we live in metro cities. You'll have QRT teams, and I'm from Mumbai, and I know you've covered 2611 very closely. So who can forget those visuals of AK-47 terrorists being you had constables carrying like the British era Bolt 303 rifles.
Yeah, but I have an issue there.
Oh, please let's talk about that before we. Let's talk about that. Yeah, definitely.
The much maligned 303 rifle. Now, I keep playing that. I was just talking to a friend. I was in Bombay over the weekend, and I told them, look, I wish I had been there on the Mumbai the VT station that night of 26 November, and I had one 303 rifle with a couple of cartridges, I would have saved the entire Maharashtra ATS
Seriously?
from annihilation. Yeah, because what happened is, see, the 303 is a fantastic weapon, right? It is one of the best long-range rifles ever made.
Okay.
Now, the problem is that you have someone who doesn't know how to use a weapon, who's never fired the weapon in God knows how many years. And because he hasn't fired it, he doesn't know how to keep the weapon. It's not cleaned, it's not oiled, it's not serviced. It probably doesn't even fire, right? These are all stuff that's just pulled out of the coat and just handed down for, for show. But if you had, I keep saying this, if you had one policeman who had one functional 303 rifle on the night of 26 November on that platform, and he knew what to do with that rifle, all he had to do was to go to high ground, take position, and just a couple of rounds and the two terrorists would have been killed right there.
Okay.
And you know what happened after they exited the VT station? They went on, they killed 50, 60 people, they killed the Maharashtra ATS, they went into a hospital, and then finally they were caught. Kasab and Ismail Khan were caught in Chowpatty. Yeah. So they went on the shooting spree. So all it took was for one policeman with a 303 rifle. That's it. See, a 303 is not an AK-47. It's not meant for close quarter battle. It was designed for the Imperial British soldiers on the plains of South Africa or the high mountains of Afghanistan and all that, to engage the enemy at distances. So here you have a fantastic, it's like a sniper rifle. It's a sniper rifle minus the scope. So even the iron sights are good enough. All you had to do was to do that. They didn't do it. And and unfortunately, because of that, when you don't know someone who knows the craft of shooting, or is it basic NCC level training, then you tend to blame the rifle. Arey yaar, iske paas 303 tha. I'm telling you, a guy who doesn't know, who has a primitive bolt action rifle and who knows how to use it, he's a good crack shot, who knows how to use a rifle, can shoot the daylights out of someone who has the most advanced weapon in the world but doesn't know how to use it, right?
Okay.
It's all about training, Dave. It's all training. It's muscle memory. It's, reflexes, all of those things. It's all thing that comes to you from using a weapon. So when the inquiry came out after the 2611, they found that many of the policemen had not fired a shot in like decades.
Ages, yeah.
So they would be, their authorization was some 10 rounds a year.
Yeah.
And because there's such a huge police force, and there's so little, it all comes down to that. पैसा नहीं है, ammunition नहीं है,
तो practice भी
नहीं कर सकते. जब practice करते public bomba bomb करती है, firing range पे देखो ये, and the firing range is in the middle of the city. You've not built modern firing ranges even. they're all open firing range. Ghatkopar police firing range. Daab, daab, karke. You're not invested in this thing. You're not invested in anything. You're not invested in training. You're not invested in infrastructure. And therefore you finally sit and say, nahi, weapon kharab tha, ye acha nahi, weapon nahi hai, 303 hai, ye purana hai, that kind of thing. So you get into all of those. The fact is that, there is a colonial story to this also. If you got a minute, I'll tell you the story of.
Please.
But, my eyes were opened when I read this book called Empire of Guns by Priya Satia, right? For me, as someone who spends a lot of his time on small arms, that's like a Bible for me. Priya Satia, she's a scholar based in the UK, and she's researched this book where she talks about how the British dealt with the natives in India.
Okay.
They ensured that the natives must never get the know-how to make these weapons. This must remain a preserve of the British. We must make the weapons. They must always be dependent for us on those weapons. And they would even go to the extent that if the enemies also, our enemy native princes, wanted the weapons, we would sell it to them. But ensure that they don't have the mining, they don't have the mines from where they can extract the metals, the iron and the stuff that is used to build the metals to build weapons. The know-how, the forging, the casting, the precise engineering, none of that should be taught to the Indians. So this mentality kind of continued for several decades. So you saw the British going and ensuring that we didn't have access to any of this know-how and stuff, because this was, they understood, they're an empire, and empires are built on guns, It's not built on non-violence. They're built on extreme violence, and the need to control that violence. So you saw the reason that India has a very, very strict gun control is also colonial inheritance, right? The British had very strict gun control for obvious reasons. You don't want the natives running around with guns, because you have 100,000 armed Indians, and next thing you know, it'll be 1857. So after 1857, they really cracked down on gun ownership and made it all. So you have a colonial history, then you have the ordnance factory boards that's set up. And you have this whole thing of, why do we need guns? It's nothing. But there is a science to this thing of gunsmithing. There is a precision thing to it. Metallurgy is involved. Exactly like watchmaking. People say, "Arey, HMT watch this factory was shut down. Arey yaar, kya hai? Old technology." Arey, watchmaking is the acme of precision engineering. Which country would allow a HMT, a watch factory to shut down? Because that is a very, very specialized skill that you need. Similarly with small arms. But now that we've caught up, we've regained a lot of ground. I think it's really good, because when I see the new companies that are there, they're very, the way they approach the problems. There are guys who've worked in some top-notch, firms abroad. They've come back, and they're now investing in these small arms designs and all that. So I think the future is bright. I'm always a glass half full guy.
I can see your passion for this topic, by the way, because you're quite into small arms, and it really comes across, and I'm really glad we're having this chat then. Right. So the great tangent, by the way, because that's an insight I've never heard before about your take on how the 303 rifle could actually have taken on those terrorists.
Yeah.
So I do want to add a sort of a disclaimer note for our listeners and viewers, because we want to save you from getting bad viral content online, because we live in that age where people slice and dice. We need to be clear that the point Sandeep was trying to make was that it's all about the training and the know-how and ensuring your people have the know-how. And it's not, he wasn't really blaming the man on the ground that particular day. Hey, his fault that we could not end up stopping the attack. It was more
the system has to ensure. The system has to ensure that our people, our soldiers, our policemen, our constables on the ground get the best equipment, and they get the training for that, and they know. And you have to prioritize that, right? If you think that firearms thing is proficiency is not a thing for the policeman to have, then you will be hit with incidents like this. Because let's not forget, Dave, we always talk of special forces need to come in, and we need to beef up for special forces. We need to beef up the policeman on the ground, because he's the first responder. The first responder at all of those attacks in 26/11 were the policemen. And some of them performed extraordinary acts of courage. Like Tukaram Womble. He grappled with, Kasab. Yeah, he was heavily armed. He took all
him
those
alive.
bullets. Yeah, he caught him alive. So you need to empower the policeman. You need to give him the best weapons training, and you have to decide what is it that I want my policeman to carry. Should he carry a pistol, for instance? Should he carry a rifle, an assault rifle, or what kind of thing is it? If he's a first responder, then he must certainly have a sidearm.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at somebody who's come in, to kill a lot of citizens, and the best guy on the ground is a well-trained policeman who's got a weapon, and he immediately uses it. And we've seen that in numerous terror attacks across the world as well, where there was a Fort Hood shootout where I think the shooter was this guy who got completely crazy, picked up a weapon and started. Major Nidal Hassan of
Yes.
the US Army went down shooting people for no reason, and there was an off-duty policewoman who just took her weapon and went and engaged him. Now the thing is that that's a very different culture there, the United States, right? Their right to carry arms, bear arms, the Second Amendment, and all of that. India is a very different kind of thing. In our system, open carry is not allowed at all. It's only the law enforcement officers who can carry weapons. So because we live in such a society where citizens cannot be armed the way they are in the United States, it is incumbent upon us to give the police, paramilitary, military, the best weapons and good training as well.